Okay, let's dig into this. Imagine just for a second that something really simple, like your fingernails, or even just a quick look at your tongue, could actually be sending you these quiet but vital messages about what's going on inside your body.
It does sound almost too easy, doesn't it?
Yeah,
But, our bodies are pretty incredible systems. They're constantly working. And sometimes, yeah, they show us little clues in the most obvious places.
exactly. So today we're doing a deep dive into what your nails and tongue might be trying to tell you silently. Think of it like unlocking this built-in health checker, no special tools needed. It's right there.
Right. Accessible anytime.
And our mission here, we're going through the source material you shared with us, pulling out the specific signs it talks about,
Yeah.
what they look like, what they could potentially mean based strictly on that research.
It's kind of a shortcut, really, to understanding these little indicators we often just, well, overlook.
Okay, so maybe grab a magnifying glass
Mm-hmm.
or, just use your eyes. Let's start with fingernails. Just take a quick look right now if you
Yeah.
can. What do you see? The material we looked at points to a few key things worth keeping an eye on.
Mm-hmm. And one of the first things the research highlights is pale or white nails.
Pale or white?
Oh.
Okay, how's that described?
It's basically when the nails look pale, almost white, across the whole nail bed.
And what does that particular look suggest, according to the material we have?
Well, according to the information, this can sometimes be a signal that your blood isn't carrying enough oxygen. The sources specifically look pretty often to anemia, especially iron deficiency anemia.
Ah, okay, anemia. Makes sense.
Mm.
And the material didn't just stop there, did it? I think it mentioned a couple of other, more specific white patterns.
That's right, yeah. One pattern they noted is called Terry's nails. That's where most of the nail looks white, except for maybe a narrow pink band right at the tip.
Terry's nails.
Yeah. And that specific look, the research links it to potential underlying things like liver problems, maybe heart failure, or even diabetes.
Wow. Okay.
And there was also mention of nails that are sort of half white near the base and then darker towards the tip. That pattern could potentially point towards kidney issues.
Got it. Now, it's probably important to mention the caveat in the sources, right? Like, just a little bit of paleness doesn't automatically mean disaster.
Absolutely not. No. But the suggestion is if all 10 of your nails look consistently very light, they're missing that usual healthy pinkness, the material suggests it's probably something worth bringing up with your doctor.
Right. Worth asking about. And for just checking at home, the notes mentioned looking under bright light, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Compare the nail color to the skin nearby.
Yeah, exactly. If that natural pink tone just seems gone, that's the visual cue they're talking about.
Okay, so moving from color. What about texture and just general appearance, like nails that look yellow, maybe thick, or even kind of crumbly?
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a different kind of signal. So as you said, the nail color turns yellow, and the texture might get thick, brittle, sometimes even crumbling.
Right.
And what the sources indicate is that the most common potential cause here is actually a fungal infection.
Oh, okay. And that's pretty common, isn't it?
It is, yes. Usually treatable, but it does take patience. You basically have to wait for the whole infected part of the nail to grow out.
Takes a while.
It does. However, the material also points to something potentially more serious. If the nails aren't just yellow, but they're also growing really slowly, and they seem unusually hard and thick, that could possibly be a sign of a much rarer condition called yellow nail syndrome.
Yellow nail syndrome. Huh. What sort of things does the research connect that to?
Well, it's described as rare, like I said, and the sources tend to link it with long-term respiratory problems, things like chronic bronchitis or maybe fluid building up around the lungs.
Okay.
The material also mentions that people with yellow nail syndrome can sometimes get swelling in their legs, too.
So I guess the takeaway here is don't just brush off changes in nail color or thickness and texture, especially if you notice it when you're trimming them. It might be more than just, how they look.
Exactly. It's your body possibly sending a signal. And the third key nail sign the research highlights moves away from color and texture, more to the shape, something called clubbed nails.
Okay, clubbed nails. That sounds quite distinctive. What does that actually look like based on the source material?
So the material describes it as the fingertips themselves starting to swell up. They get rounder, maybe a bit puffy or bulbous. And then the nails, they curve noticeably downwards, sort of wrapping around the end of the finger.
Yeah, that does sound like something you'd probably notice. What could that appearance indicate?
This look can sometimes happen when the body isn't getting enough oxygen over a longer period. So the sources frequently link clubbed nails to long-term lung conditions or heart conditions.
Mhm.
It's also been associated in the material we looked at with certain liver problems and even some digestive diseases.
And the research even gave a simple little test you can do yourself for this one, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yes. It's often called the Shamroth window test or the diamond gap test. Basically, you put the backs of your two index fingers together, pressing the nails right up against each other.
Okay.
Normally, most people will see a tiny little diamond-shaped gap between the nail beds, right near the cuticle.
Right, I see that.
If that gap disappears, though, and the area feels kind of flat or even angled outwards instead, the material suggests that could be an indication of clubbing.
And is that always serious if you see that, if that gap is gone?
Well, the sources are clear that not all cases of clubbing means something serious is wrong. Sometimes it can even just run in families without any underlying disease.
Okay.
However, if this is a new change for you and you're seeing it on multiple fingers, even if it doesn't hurt at all, the information suggests it's definitely worth getting checked out. It could be an important signal from your system.
Okay. So clearly our fingernails can be this, well, quiet reflection of what's happening inside. But the research also points to another, maybe unexpected area.
Mm.
Your tongue. Apparently it's not just for tasting pizza.
That's absolutely right. Your tongue is remarkably visible, isn't it? And it can show some pretty early signs about your health status. One of the first signs the material discusses is a white-coated tongue.
A white coating.
Yeah.
Okay. What does that usually look like? Is it just faint or...
According to the notes, it appears as this white layer across the tongue's surface. It's particularly noticeable if it's quite thick, and maybe it's difficult to just simply brush away with your toothbrush.
Right. And what might that be a sign of?
The material indicates this is frequently a sign of something called oral thrush, which is a common type of yeast infection right there in the mouth.
Oral crush.
Okay.
Who does the research say is more likely to get that?
It often happens when someone's immune system might be a bit weakened. The sources mention it's more common in older adults or perhaps individuals with diabetes, or even people who use long-term antibiotics or those inhaled steroid medications, like for asthma.
Ah, okay. And the material described the appearance, like
Yeah.
milky white, and maybe some symptoms too.
Yes, exactly. Milky white appearance. And the notes mention symptoms can include soreness, maybe a reduced ability to taste food properly.
Right.
The key takeaway from the sources seems to be that oral thrush is usually treatable, especially if you catch it early. So if you see this kind of persistent white coating, it's not something to just ignore.
Good to know. Okay,
Yeah.
what about a white patch on the tongue? One that doesn't wipe away.
Mm.
That sounds different from a general coating all over.
It is different, yeah. That's the next specific sign highlighted in the research. If you happen to notice a distinct white patch, maybe just in one particular spot on your tongue, and it's been there for several weeks and you definitely can't wipe it off, that's something that needs closer attention.
Okay, what could cause a persistent patch like that?
The material suggests this type of patch could be a condition called leukoplakia.
Leukoplakia. And what typically causes that, according to the research?
Well, the notes link it primarily to chronic irritation. Smoking is mentioned as a particularly common cause.
Smoking again.
Okay.
And what's the potentially serious aspect the source material brings up there?
Well, while it's often harmless, the sources do point out that in rarer cases, doctors view these leukoplakia patches as a potential early warning sign for oral cancer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So the bottom line there seems to be, if you see a patch, looks unusually white, maybe feels uncomfortable, and it's just sticking around for weeks,
Yeah.
the strong suggestion from the research is get it checked out.
Absolutely. Definitely worth an evaluation. And then finally, the source material discussed a tongue that looks red and unusually smooth or shiny.
Red and shiny. Okay, what's going on there? That sounds different again.
It is. The description they provide is a smooth, bright red, almost glossy appearance. It's like the tiny bumps you normally have on your tongue, the papillae, seem missing or flattened out. It's sometimes referred to descriptively as a beefy tongue, or maybe a strawberry tongue.
Beefy tongue. Okay. And what could be the underlying reason for that specific look?
The research indicates this appearance is often linked to deficiencies in certain key nutrients. It's specifically mentioned as commonly seen with a deficiency in vitamin B12 or perhaps iron.
B12 or iron. Okay.
Hmm.
Are there other symptoms someone might notice with this based on the source material?
Yes, the notes mention you might also feel a kind of burning sensation on the tongue. Maybe food doesn't taste quite right, or you might feel discomfort when eating spicy or hot foods.
Right.
And the material also points out that older adults, specifically, can sometimes have more trouble absorbing vitamin B12 effectively, so that might make them a bit more susceptible to this kind of deficiency.
That makes sense. So if you notice your tongue looking really distinctly red and smooth like that, especially maybe if you're also feeling symptoms like unusual tiredness or weakness, the research suggests it's a pretty good idea to talk to your doctor, maybe about checking your blood for potential vitamin or iron deficiencies.
Exactly. It's really quite a fascinating visual clue, isn't it? Right into your nutritional status.
It truly is incredible how these small, easily accessible parts of our body can reflect these deeper health states.
So just to quickly recap the key points, based on the summary provided in the sources we looked at, there are essentially 5 main things you can easily check at home.
Okay.
First, those pale or white nails could potentially point towards anemia or maybe some chronic conditions.
Right.
Second, the yellow, thick, or crumbly nails. Most often, that's a fungal infection, but sometimes could indicate something rarer, like that yellow nail syndrome.
Got
Third, clubbed nails, those rounded fingertips and the downward curving nails, can be linked to issues with oxygen delivery, often seen in lung or heart conditions. Fourth, a white-coated tongue, frequently a sign of a treatable yeast infection like oral thrush.
Okay.
And fifth, that shiny, smooth red tongue can be a signal that your body might be low on key vitamins like B12 or iron.
That's a great summary. Now, the material was really clear on this point, wasn't it? Noticing one of these signs does not automatically mean you have some serious illness.
Absolutely. That's crucial. But as the sources emphasize, they are like these gentle reminders from your body just to pay attention.
Little flags, maybe?
Yeah.
Potential flags? And the research strongly encourages that if you do notice any of these changes, and they seem to be sticking around for more than, say, a few days or a few weeks, it's really worth mentioning them to your doctor.
Definitely. Getting early attention to a potential issue, if there is one, can often make a significant difference down the line.
Yeah. Ultimately, just getting into the habit of occasionally, glancing at your nails, taking a peek at your tongue, it just helps you stay more in tune with your own body.
It's a simple form of self-observation, really. Paying attention, being a little curious, and just, caring for yourself in these small but meaningful ways.
It really makes you wonder, though, how many other simple, everyday observations about your body might you be overlooking? Things that could be quietly sending you signals. What else might be right there, right in front of you, just waiting for you to take a closer look?